Before you start watching this video, I'm going to deal with these four graphs, and I want you to check whether you can write down the domain, range, center and radius, as well as the formula for each of the functions. If you are capable to do that, or if you're sure that you're correct, you can check the answers. And if you don't know how to do it, you can watch the video further. Let us look at the purple graph first. This is this one Q of x, and when I look at the formula which I supplied in this case, then I see that this, to get to the value of h, I can write the x plus 1 as x minus 1. So, and that is why I have a h value of -1. To find the domain, we must first look at how did we get the domain of f. We know that x value of f is in between -2 and +2. But now, the new x, we can write this x plus 1 as x, capital X. So, the same as we had here, this capital X should now be in between -2 and +2. So I can x plus 1 is less than or equal to 2 and greater or equal to -2. To get x isolated, I have to subtract 1 each side. So then I get -3 on the left hand side and +1 on the right hand side. That coincide with the value here. On the end point we have -3 on the left hand side and +1 on the right hand side. So now we can write down the domain, and we can write a square bracket because we do not have any open dots here. And the range is exactly the same as that of the green graph, because the graph did not shift up or down. So it's from 0 to 2. The radius in this case is 2, and we get it from 1 minus -3 divided by 2. That is 4/2, which is equal to 2. And the center is, we can take any endpoint, like for instance 1, subtract the radius, and then we get that -1. So the x value is -1, and since I'm still on the x-axis, the y value is 0. So this is my hk. So in this case, my center hk is equal to -1, 0. So the purple graph is the green graph, f of x shifted 1 unit to the left, and that is all. Let us look at the grey graph. This is the one here below the x-axis, and if we first write down the coordinates of the endpoints, we see that the left endpoint is at -3, -3, and the right endpoint is at 1, -3. So these are the two endpoints. So I can immediately say that my domain will be from, if I look at the graph, then my domain will be from x -3 up to 1. If I look at the radius here, which is equal to 2, then I can say my x plus 1 should be less than or equal to 2, greater or equal to -2. If I solve for x, then I must subtract 1 both sides. So there I will get 1, and on the left hand side I will get -3. So in this case, my -3 here corresponds to the left endpoint there, the left value in my square brackets, and the +1 to the +1 in my square brackets. My range, if I look at the k value, which is -3, then I know I've shifted everything down. First I've shifted 1 unit left and then 3 units down to get at the same endpoint. So my range we can read the y value off here, that is from -3, and the top value there is at -1. So my y values will be in between -3 and -1, because this value here is the value -1, -1. And that will also be the top of that grey circle. So if I now subtract 2 for the radius, then I'll get my center at x -1, and my y should be exactly the same as this -3 and -3. So I will have a center here of -1, -3. So that is my center. My radius, I can read it off from the graph, or I can read it off from the formula, or I can count the number of blocks here, or I can say the endpoint, my first endpoint is 1 minus -3 divided by 2. That gives me 4 divided by 2, which is equal to 2. And that also, that 2 and that 2 correspond, because that 4 is supposed to be 2 squared. So the grey graph, Q of x, in this case it should be R of x. The grey graph, R of x, is then the green graph, shifted 1 unit to the left, because h is -1, and then 3 units down. And we can use a color pencil here. We can say, okay, if we shift 1 unit to the left and then 1, 2, 3 units down, I will get at the same maximum value. If I take my green graph there, 1 unit to the left and 1, 2, 3 units down, then I also get the same result. Let us look at the brown graph. I've already supplied the formula here. You can see we still have a radius of 2, because we can take the, first of all, this endpoint here is the point 1, 4, and the left endpoint is at -3, 4. So if I add the radius, then I get the center here, which is at -1, 4. So what happens here, my domain, I will have again x plus 1 less than or equal to 2, greater or equal to -2. So x, I will have to subtract 1 both sides, will be 1 and greater or equal to -3, and that coincide with our values here. The x value is -3 here and +1 there. So the domain is the set of x's such that it agrees with that conditions, and in interval notation we write it like this. The range, we can see that it started at 4 and then up to 6 there. So normally our range will be from 0 to 2. So normally the y will be in between 2 and 0, but now we've moved up 4 units, so we +4 and +4. So that means that our range is from 4 to 6, and it's square brackets. Given the center and the radius here, and that means that the brown graph, S of x, is the green graph, shifted, like the purple graph, shifted 1 unit to the left and then 4 units up. And we can see it on the graph here. If I take, for instance, the green graph, I shift 1 unit to the left and then 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to the maximum value there. Or if I take the end point of the green graph on the left hand side, I move 1 unit to the left and then 1, 2, 3, 4 units up to get to that end point. So that is how the shifts work.